The massive hall stretched endlessly in all directions, its walls made of some kind of glowing crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Hundreds of alien beings filled the space, their voices creating a low hum that vibrated through the air. Some looked like giant insects with sharp claws. Others were made of pure energy that flickered like fire. And a few resembled walking trees with bark-like skin. Ambassador. Kim Dae sat alone at a small table near the back of the room. His simple black suit looked plain compared to the colorful scales, shining armor, and glowing bodies around him. He had been waiting for 3 hours, but finally, the council was ready to hear Earth's request. A creature that looked like a walking diamond stood up at the front of the room. Its voice rang out like breaking glass. "We are here to discuss the Void Swarm threat. These machines have already destroyed 17 star systems. They eat everything in their path, planets, ships, even stars themselves." Kim Dae felt his heart beat faster, had seen the reports from the outer colonies. The Void Swarm was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. They were not alive, but they were not simple machines either. They learned, they adapted, and they never stopped coming. "The Roxian Empire has lost 12 battle fleets," announced. "A red-skinned alien with 4 arms. Our plasma weapons cannot penetrate their shields." The Kelthany Federation's entire 7th Fleet was consumed in less than an hour, added a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish. Their ships simply dissolved our hulls. More and more species shared their horror stories. The Void Swarm seemed unstoppable. They had been conquering the galaxy for months, and no one had found a way to fight them successfully. Finally, the diamond creature turned toward Kim Dae. The human representative may speak. Kim Dae stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the room focused on him, could feel their attention like a physical weight. "Thank you, Council Speaker. Earth requests military aid to defend our colonies. We also offer our full participation in any defensive alliance against the Void Swarm." For a moment, the hall was completely silent. Then, something unexpected happened. Laughter began to ripple through the crowd, not just quiet chuckling, but loud, open laughter that echoed off the crystal walls. A tall alien with purple skin and 6 eyes stepped forward. Did this human just offer to help us fight the Void Swarm? The same species that only learned to travel between stars 100 years ago? Their weapons are still based on chemical explosives, called out another alien with a snake-like body. "We stopped using such primitive technology 3,000 years ago." The laughter grew louder. Kim Dae felt his face grow hot with embarrassment, but he stayed standing. "Humanity may be young, but we have experience with warfare. We have fought many battles on our own world, against your own species." The purple alien's eyes glowed brighter. "You fight with sticks and stones compared to the Void Swarm's technology." Creature that looked like a giant bird with metal feathers spoke up. "Our databases show that humans still use projectile weapons. The Void Swarm's shields can stop energy beams that could destroy entire moons." "Perhaps," suggested a gentle voice. From the left side of the room, "Earth's people would be better served by evacuation. We have refugee programs that could save your population." Kim Dae shook his head. "We will not abandon our home. Earth has 40 billion people. We will fight." This brought even more laughter. The diamond creature at the front held up one crystalline hand. "Let us vote. All those in favor of providing military aid to Earth, raise your appendages." Kim Dae looked around the room hopefully. Not a single alien raised any part of their body. The vote was completely unanimous against helping humanity. "All those in favor of offering Earth a place in the refugee relocation program?" the speaker asked. Every alien in the room raised something: hands, claws, tentacles, or glowing energy fields. They were willing to help humans run away, but not to fight. "The decision is made," the speaker announced. Earth will receive no military aid, no weapons, and no alliance membership. However, the Galactic Council generously offers to relocate your entire population to safe worlds far from the Void Swarm's path. Kim Dae gathered his papers with shaking hands. As he walked toward the exit, he heard the purple alien speaking to its companion. "At least when the Void Swarm reaches Earth, those humans will not suffer for long." "The machines are very efficient," agreed the other. "It is almost merciful." They will never know how hopeless their situation truly was. Kim Dae stepped outside the council hall into the cold air of the space station. Earth had 6 months before the Void Swarm reached their outer colonies. 6 months to prepare for a battle that every advanced species in the galaxy believed was impossible to win. He looked up at the stars through the transparent dome above his head. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting for his report. 40 billion people were depending on him to bring back help. Instead, he was returning empty-handed. But as he walked toward his small human ship, Kim Dae felt something growing inside him. It was not fear or despair. It was anger. The galaxy had written off humanity before even giving them a chance. They would learn that humans were not so easy to dismiss. The news from the Galactic Council hit Earth like a thunderbolt. Every television, radio, and computer screen carried the same message. Humanity was alone. The advanced alien civilizations had refused to help, offering only to relocate Earth's population to distant worlds as refugees. Dr. Parkman stood in his laboratory, staring at the holographic display that showed the Void Swarm's position. Red dots marking enemy ships were moving steadily toward Earth's outer colonies. 6 months. That was all the time they had before the machines would arrive and begin their destruction. "Sir, President Chen is calling an emergency meeting," announced his assistant, Lieutenant Lee. So, she was young, barely 25, but her eyes held the determination that seemed to be spreading across the entire planet. Parkman nodded and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the city transforming. Construction crews worked day and night, building new factories. The old car manufacturing plants were being converted to produce spacecraft parts. Even the shopping malls were being turned into weapon assembly centers. "What's the latest report from the recruitment centers?" he asked Lee, so checked her tablet. "Over 200 million people have volunteered for military service in the past week. That's 10 times more than we have uniforms for. The civilian manufacturing output has increased by 400%. Parkman smiled despite the desperate situation. When faced with extinction, humanity was showing its true nature. We're not running away or giving up. They were fighting back with everything they had. "Show me the alien technology samples," he ordered. Liso led him to a large room filled with strange devices. Over the past century, Earth had collected dozens of alien artifacts through trade and diplomacy. Most were simple tools or broken pieces of equipment that other species considered worthless. But now, these scraps were humanity's most valuable resources. "The engineering teams have been working around the clock," Liso explained, picking up a small blue crystal. "This is a Zephyrian energy storage device. The original design can hold about 100 units of power." She handed him a modified version of the same crystal. It looked almost identical, but small human-made components had been added around the edges. "Our version can hold 140 units. We found a way to improve their design by 30%. Parkman examined the device carefully. "How did we manage that?" "The Zephyrians built it to last for thousands of years," Liso explained. "They made it very stable and safe. But we realized that if we're only going to use it for a few months, we can push it much harder. We removed the safety limits and added our own power boosters." This was exactly what Parkman had hoped for. While other species had spent millennia perfecting individual technologies, they had become conservative and predictable. Humanity's advantage was their willingness to take risks and try new approaches. "What about the weapons systems?" he asked Lee. So led him to another section of the laboratory. Here, teams of engineers were working on strange hybrid devices that looked like they had been built from spare parts. In many ways, they had been. "Took Kethmoran plasma rifles and combined them with our railgun technology," explained Chief Engineer Kim Hae, a woman in her 50s, who had spent 30 years building experimental weapons. "The result is a weapon that hits harder than either. The original plasma rifle or our railgun," demonstrated by firing the weapon at a test target. The projectile glowed with plasma energy as it traveled, leaving a hole clean through 6 inches of steel armor. "The aliens think in terms of energy weapons, OR projectile weapons," Kim Hae continued. "They never thought to combine both approaches. Their minds are locked into old patterns. Parkman watched as dozens of similar hybrid weapons were being assembled. Human creativity was taking alien technology and pushing it in directions that no other species had ever considered. The results were often crude and sometimes dangerous, but they were also surprisingly effective. "Sir, we're receiving reports from the training centers," Liso announced, reading from her tablet. "The military advisors are sharing combat experience from Earth's various conflicts. The alien observers are calling our tactics primitive and chaotic." "Good," Parkman replied. "Let them think that. The Void Swarm has conquered dozens of advanced civilizations by studying their military patterns. They know how civilized warfare is supposed to work, but they've never faced an enemy that fights dirty." He walked over to a wall display showing Earth's military preparations. Veterans from conflicts around the world were sharing knowledge that seemed barbaric to alien minds, but had proven effective in human warfare: guerrilla tactics, suicide attacks, using civilian infrastructure as weapons, strategies that no civilized species would ever consider. "The Void Swarm is a machine intelligence," Parkman said quietly. "They calculate probabilities and predict enemy behavior based on logical patterns, but humans don't always act logically. We do desperate things when we're cornered. We sacrifice ourselves for others. We take impossible risks." Liso nodded. "The Psychological Warfare Division is working on ways to confuse their targeting systems. If we can make them uncertain about our intentions, even for a few seconds, it might give us an advantage." As Parkman looked around the laboratory, he felt something he hadn't expected. Despite the overwhelming odds, despite being abandoned by the galaxy, he felt hope. Humanity was doing what it did best: adapting, innovating, and refusing to give up. The Void Swarm was about to learn that there was a difference between defeating a civilized species and conquering humanity. The first alarm rang at 0347 hours, ship time. Captain Hansol jerked awake in his command chair aboard the defense station orbiting Proxima Colony. The red warning lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow as his crew scrambled to their positions. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported Sergeant Choyu from the sensor station. Multiple signatures." "Sir, it's them." Hansol's blood turned to ice. Through the main view screen, he could see them approaching dark shapes that seemed to swallow the light around them. The Void Swarm had arrived exactly on schedule. 6 months after the Galactic Council's rejection of Earth's plea for help. "How many?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Sensors are having trouble getting accurate readings," Choyu replied, her fingers dancing across the controls. "The ships seem to absorb our scanning beams. Best estimate is over 300. Vessels ranging from destroyer size to—" She paused, checking her readings again. "Sir, some of these ships are over 5 kilometers long." Hansol watched the enemy formation advance with perfect coordination. They moved like a school of fish, each ship maintaining exact distance from its neighbors. There was something terrifying about their precision. No human fleet had ever moved with such perfect unity. "Signal all defense stations," he ordered. "Implement Battle Plan Alpha and send a message to Earth Command. The Void Swarm is here." The next few hours unfolded like a nightmare. Colonial. Defense Station Alpha, humanity's most advanced outpost, lasted exactly 17 minutes against the Void Swarm's assault. Hansol watched the explosion light up the darkness of space, knowing that 3,000 people had just died. Defense. Station Beta held out for 23 minutes. The crews fought bravely, using every weapon in their arsenal, but the Void Swarm's technology was simply too advanced. Their dark ships absorbed energy weapons like they were nothing more than flashlights. Kinetic projectiles bounced off their hulls without leaving a scratch. "Sir, we're receiving retreat orders from Earth Command," reported Communications Officer Park Jun. "All remaining stations are to fall back to the inner defensive line." Hansol studied his tactical display. The Void Swarm was advancing toward the main colonies with methodical precision. They weren't rushing or showing any signs of urgency. They knew they had already won. "Belay that order," he announced suddenly. The bridge crew turned to look at him with surprise. Sergeant Choyu spoke first. "Sir, our weapons are barely scratching their hulls. Station Alpha had twice our firepower, and they were destroyed in minutes. That's exactly why we're not retreating, Han Solo replied, his mind racing. Look at their formation. They're moving in perfect coordination like a machine. They expect us to behave logically, to retreat when we're outgunned, to follow standard military doctrine. He pointed to the tactical display. But what if we don't do what they expect? What if we act like humans instead of like a civilized military force? The crew exchanged glances. Park Jun cleared his throat nervously. Sir, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we do something that would horrify the Galactic Council, Han Solo said with a grim smile. I'm suggesting we fight dirty. He began issuing orders that went against every rule of civilized warfare. Damaged ships were not to retreat, but to maintain position. Civilian transports were to be disguised as military vessels. Most shocking of all, he ordered the preparation of special packages, devices that Dr. Parkman's team had been working on in secret. Sir, if we implement this plan, we'll lose most of our ships, warned Choyu. We're going to lose them anyway, Han Solo replied. But this way, we might teach the Void Swarm something they've never learned before, that humans don't fight fair. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of retreating when their shields failed, human ships rammed directly into Void Swarm formations. Damaged vessels that should have been abandoned instead accelerated toward the enemy, their crews staying aboard until the last possible moment. The Void Swarm's perfect coordination began to show cracks. Their machine intelligence was programmed to fight civilized opponents who followed logical patterns. But humans were doing things that made no tactical sense, sacrificing valuable ships for minimal damage, using civilian vessels as decoys, and implementing strategies that seemed designed to maximize their own casualties. Sir, the enemy formation is beginning to adjust, reported Choyu. They're trying to compensate for our unpredictable behavior. Good Han Solo replied, watching as 3 human ships executed a maneuver that would have been impossible for any other species. They were using a damaged colony transport as a shield, while positioning themselves for a coordinated attack. Let them try to figure us out. Special packages began to deploy. What looked like standard escape pods were actually Dr. Parkman's secret weapons, not bombs or missiles, but something far more dangerous to a machine intelligence. They contained computer viruses specifically designed to exploit the Void Swarms. Networked communications. As the pods reached the enemy ships, Han Solo held his breath. This was humanity's desperate gamble, the idea that their chaotic, unpredictable nature could be turned into a weapon against an enemy that relied on perfect coordination. The first signs of success were subtle. A few Void Swarm ships began to drift slightly out of formation. Their targeting became less precise. For the first time since the battle began, human ships started scoring hits on enemy hulls. Sir, something's happening to their network? Choyu reported excitedly. Their coordination is breaking down. Han Solo smiled grimly. The Void Swarm was about to learn that there was a difference between defeating a civilized opponent and conquering humanity. The virus spread through the Void Swarm's network like wildfire through dry grass. Dr. Park. Min watched the tactical display from Earth's main command center, his heart pounding as the enemy's perfect formation began to crack. The special packages that Captain Han Solo had deployed were working better than anyone had dared to hope. Network disruption confirmed across 40% of their fleet, announced Lieutenant Liso, her voice filled with excitement. The machine intelligence is losing coordination. Colonel Zhang Hai, Earth's top military strategist, studied the battlefield through the main view screen. The dark ships that had moved like a single organism just hours before were now drifting apart. Some were firing at empty space. Others had stopped moving entirely, and a few were actually shooting at their own companions. What exactly did we do to them? She asked Parkman. We gave them something they've never experienced before, he replied with a tired smile. Doubt. The virus wasn't just a computer program. It was chaos itself, programmed to behave like a human mind under stress. Where the Void Swarm expected logical responses, the virus provided random ones. Where they calculated probabilities, it introduced uncertainty. For a machine intelligence that had conquered the galaxy through perfect coordination, this was like poison, double quotes, sir. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Council, reported Communications Officer Song Ha. They are requesting permission to observe our battle tactics. Colonel Zhang Hai almost laughed. The same alien species that had dismissed humanity as primitives were now begging to watch how humans fought. Tell them they're welcome to observe, but they might want to take notes. On the view screen, the tide of battle was turning in ways that defied all military logic. Human ships that had been retreating suddenly reversed course, implementing battle plans that seemed to change every few minutes. The Void Swarm's targeting systems, designed to predict enemy movements based on rational behavior, couldn't keep up with humanity's chaotic tactics. Captain Han Sol's voice crackled through the communications system from his damaged station. Earth Command, this is Defense Station, Charlie. We've got them confused, but we need to press the advantage now. They're adapting to our virus. Understood, Charlie, Colonel Zhang Hai replied. All units implement Operation Madness. What followed was the most unconventional military assault in galactic history. Earth's fleet attacked using everything they could find, modified mining equipment that hurled asteroids at enemy ships, communication satellites reprogrammed to act as guided missiles, and garbage haulers converted into massive kinetic weapons. The Void Swarm's machine intelligence tried desperately to adapt. But every time they adjusted their tactics, humanity changed their approach. When the enemy learned to defend against energy weapons, humans switched to projectiles. When they adapted to projectiles, humans used ramming attacks. When they prepared for ramming attacks, humans deployed decoys. Sir, the enemy is requesting communication, Song Ha announced with surprise. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at her. The Void Swarm had never communicated with any species before. They simply appeared, conquered, and consumed. Put it through, Colonel Zhang Hai ordered. The voice that emerged from the speakers was cold and mechanical. But there was something else underneath, something that sounded almost like confusion. Human forces, this is the Void Swarm Collective. Your tactics are ... illogical. You sacrifice valuable resources for minimal tactical gain. You attack when retreat would be advantageous. Do not follow standard military doctrine. Colonel Zhang Hai exchanged glances with Dr. Parkman. The machine intelligence was actually trying to understand human behavior. For the first time in their existence, they had encountered something they couldn't calculate or predict. That's right, she replied calmly. We don't follow your rules. We make our own. This is inefficient, the Void Swarm responded. Military forces should operate according to logical parameters. Your behavior patterns are causing system errors in our tactical algorithms. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to attack us, Colonel Zhang Hai said with a grim smile. The final phase of the battle began with humanity's most audacious move yet. Instead of protecting their home planet, they launched every available ship toward the Void Swarm's main formation. It looked like a suicide attack, and by any rational standard it was, but as the human fleet approached, something unexpected happened. The ships began to separate, each one taking a different course. Some dove below the enemy formation, others climbed above it, and a few charged straight through the middle. The Void Swarm's targeting systems couldn't track them all. Impact. In 30 seconds, reported Li So. All ships have their special packages ready. The special packages weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were humanity's final surprise, modified human computers loaded with Earth's entire cultural database. Music, art, literature, movies, and most importantly, thousands of years of human military history filled with every dirty trick, desperate gamble, impossible victory that humanity had ever achieved as the packages detonated throughout the Void Swarm's network. The effect was immediate and devastating. The machine intelligence found itself flooded with human concepts it had never encountered: creativity, sacrifice, honor, and above all, the stubborn refusal to give up even when defeat was certain. Sir, enemy ships are beginning to retreat, Song Ha announced in amazement. The Void Swarm is actually withdrawing from the battlefield. For the first time in their existence, the machines that had conquered dozens of civilizations were running away. They had encountered something their programming couldn't handle: the beautiful, chaotic, unpredictable nature of humanity itself. As the dark ships disappeared into the void, Colonel Zheng Hai allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans were pushed to their limits, they didn't break. They became something more dangerous than any advanced technology. They became truly human. 3 months after the Void Swarm's retreat, Ambassador Kim Dae found himself once again walking through the crystalline halls of the Galactic Council. But this time, everything was different. The same aliens who had laughed at humanity's offer of help now watched him with something that looked very much like respect. The diamond-shaped speaker who had once dismissed Earth stood up as Kim Dae entered the chamber. Ambassador Kim, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you back to these halls. We have much to discuss. Kim Dae took his seat, but this time it wasn't at a small table in the back. His chair was positioned at the center of the Great Hall, surrounded by representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. The purple-skinned alien who had mocked humanity's primitive weapons now sat quietly, his 6 eyes fixed on the floor. The Council has reviewed the battle recordings from your encounter with the Void Swarm, the speaker continued. We must admit that your victory was... unexpected. Unexpected? Kim Dae allowed himself a small smile. I believe the word you used before was impossible. A ripple of uncomfortable silence spread through the chamber. The bird-like alien with metal feathers cleared her throat. Perhaps we were too quick to judge your species' capabilities. The Kelthani Federation would like to formally request a military exchange program with Earth. As would the Roxian Empire, added the red-skinned alien with 4 arms. Our plasma technology combined with human tactical thinking could prove very effective. One by one, the same species that had refused to help Earth now offered technology transfers, military alliances, and trade agreements. The tables had turned completely. The galaxy's youngest civilization had become its most sought-after partner. Before we discuss alliances, Kim Dae said carefully, I have a question for the Council. What happened to the Void Swarm after they retreated from Earth? The speaker's crystalline body flickered with uncomfortable light. They have withdrawn to the edge of our galaxy. Our long-range sensors detect no movement from their forces. It appears they are. It's analyzing what happened during your battle. In other words, Kim Dae said, they're trying to figure out how humans think. That is correct, admitted the jellyfish-like creature from the Kelthani Federation. For the first time in recorded history, the Void Swarm has stopped their expansion. They seem to be studying human behavior patterns. Kim Dae nodded. Dr. Parkman had predicted this would happen. The machine intelligence was now faced with a problem they couldn't solve through pure logic. How to predict and counter human unpredictability. Earth is willing to share our tactical knowledge, Kim Dae announced. But we join this alliance as equals, not as students or junior partners. Of course, the speaker agreed quickly. The Council formally offers Earth's full membership with all rights and privileges. As the ceremony concluded, Kim Dae stepped outside the Council chambers to find Colonel Zheng Hai waiting for him. She had arrived on the same transport, but her mission was different. While Kim Dae negotiated politics, she was here to begin training alien military forces. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected, Kim Dae replied. They're practically begging us to teach them how to fight like humans. What about your meetings with their military commanders? Colonel Zheng Hai shook her head with amusement. It's incredible. These civilizations have weapons that can destroy entire planets, but they've forgotten how to think tactically. They're so focused on technology that they've lost the ability to improvise. Show me what you mean, Kim Dae said. They walked to the station's observation deck, where a holographic display showed various alien military exercises. The formations were perfect, the timing was precise, and every movement followed established protocols. It was beautiful to watch, but also predictable. Watch this, Colonel Zheng Hai said, activating another display. This is how the Zephyrians would attack a fortified position. The hologram showed crystal ships moving in perfect formation, firing energy weapons in synchronized patterns. Every shot was calculated for maximum efficiency. The attack was flawless by any technical standard. Now watch how Captain Han Sol would approach the same target, she continued. The second hologram showed human ships approaching chaotically. Some came from above, others from below, and a few seemed to be flying in random directions. But as the attack developed, the apparent chaos revealed itself as controlled confusion. The human ships used the enemy's own expectations against them, striking where they were least prepared. "The difference is that we don't fight fair," Colonel Zhang Hai explained. "We use whatever works, even if it seems wrong or wasteful." These alien civilizations have become too civilized for their own good. As they watched, other alien observers gathered around the displays. Military officers from a dozen different species studied the human tactics with intense concentration. They were trying to understand something that couldn't be taught through simple instruction: the human ability to think outside established patterns. "Sir," Colonel Zhang Hai said quietly, "there's something else. Our intelligence teams have been monitoring communications from other parts of the galaxy. Word about our victory is spreading. Some species are calling it the human miracle. Others are saying we've proven that the Void Swarm can be defeated." Kim Dae looked out at the stars through the observation deck's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, the Void Swarm was regrouping, trying to understand what had happened. But they weren't the only ones who had learned something important. The galaxy had discovered that its newest members possessed something more valuable than advanced technology: the ability to find victory in impossible situations, through sheer determination and creative thinking. Humanity had not just survived their first galactic war, they had changed the rules of how wars could be fought. The age of predictable civilized warfare was over. The age of human ingenuity had begun.